How my heart leapt when I heard Don Hewitt was coming into the program here today on this Monday, because I didn't know. People wonder, how far in advance do you know? Usually maybe an hour before we go to air who our guests are going to be. And Donnie's here. Look at that. How are you, Donnie? Is your chest itchy?
Well, as I just said, yeah, it is, actually. I might go on a hunger strike with this Hab winless streak. The worst streak for not winning a game since 1939-40.
72 years?
I'm considering a hunger strike to win their next game. Won't eat or drink a thing.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Which reminds, I'm glad you brought that up. Holy smokes, going to go right down a different road here.
Yeah.
You saw the Winnipeg fan who didn't wear pants until the Bombers won the Grey Cup, which apparently is true. I have a tough time believing that in Winnipeg you could go that long without wearing pants. And then did you see the guy in Cincinnati? He lived on the roof of his house until the Bengals won a game. He'd been up there all summer.
Really? I didn't miss that one.
And fall. And finally the Bengals won on Sunday so he could come down. His kids and wife were going up to have lunch with him and supper. He was sleeping up there.
Wow.
Have you seen the movie Fever Pitch?
Yes.
There's a line in there that I've never forgotten. And they said to the guy, Jimmy Fallon, who was the actor, his ex said, "You've spent your whole life loving the team. How many years have they spent loving you?"
Sometimes that doesn't.
You know what I mean?
I know it doesn't.
I'm not, but I never forgot that.
I know. Isn't that true? I saw the Winnipeg fan just drank the 30-year-old beer. Did you see that one?
OV.
Yeah, the 30-year-old beer. Can you imagine how bad a 30-year-old beer is? Like fine wine, I get it. Better with age. Beer does not get better with age.
No, but from what I remember of OV, you wouldn't know whether it was new or it had been 28 years.
You wouldn't know.
So John Thomas Moore writes from Mesa, Arizona. He says, glad we can keep up on Rider news, especially the Hughes signing. Don is an awesome guest, always will be. Riders go after our former great D-line sack champ. So Charleston Hughes, we believe, is re-signed with the Rough Riders. But I'm not yet done with the Habs thing. You scratched the surface on that. You scratched your logo on that.
Right.
They've lost 8 in a row.
I'm breaking out in hives of them.
Yeah, somebody wrote in and said it's been 72 years since they've had a losing streak this long. And and when I mentioned it last hour, Don, the Facebook wall just went nuts. And the text line, people want to know what we think's wrong with the Habs. And my problem out here, living in the Bermuda Triangle where we do of the NHL, we're right between Winnipeg, Calgary, and Edmonton. We don't get Montreal games enough.
Well, I got to pay for them, which I do.
There you go.
For some crazy reason.
So you have paid for Habs rights here.
Yeah, I get NHL Live, so I watch all the Hab games as a diehard fan. And Don Ryback, just sent us a message, Dear Don Hewitt, the Bruins rule. I'm sad to say that Don is completely and totally correct. And there's only one problem the Montreal Canadiens have, just one. Marc Bergevin, fire his butt.
Okay.
The coaches are fine. The players are trying hard. As far as I'm concerned, Jeff Molson has been an absolute disaster as a Montreal Canadiens owner. He makes 80, 90 million profit for himself and his partners running the Montreal Canadiens. That's a lot of cash to stick in your wallet for the mediocre product that this city of Montreal, I'm acting like it's here, but it's not.
It's fine.
Has had to deal with, and he just has no idea what's going on. He has no organic players. All his players are from somewhere else and generally rejected. He's only got several players where they drafted, and they're currently playing on the team. He's looking for other players that other teams felt were expendable. They're too small. They can't play defense. And I do not believe for a second it's coaching. And why is Marc Bergevin still there? Well, because Jeff Molson doesn't want to pay him out because he signed him to too long of a contract, because it would interfere with the $80 million that he's putting in his own pocket.
Yeah, they've had good coaches. They've had good coaches. Who was the last really great GM? Was it Ray-Jean Houle before Bergevin? Was he the last one?
The last GM was Savard.
And then
Houle was
Savard,
a disaster.
and then Ray-Jean Houle, and then so who was the best?
They haven't had a good one since Serge.
Yeah,
really. They haven't had a good general manager, and of course they had the greatest general manager of all time in hockey, in my opinion, and we can certainly argue it, in Sam Pollock. I mean, all Bergevin has to do is take the Sam Pollock model and he'd be fine, but he ignores that Sam Pollock model. And They're just they're like kids playing against men. Like Boston didn't even make really any effort in that hockey game last night till the third period, and you just knew it. Well, they're not really trying.
Yeah.
Oh, we better go win the game in the third period. And Carey Price is getting a lot of criticism. He had no chance at any of those 3 Boston goals last night because the defense is so bad in front of him. So, I mean, it's just a joke.
Is that why Claude Julien hasn't been fired? Because the GM Bergevin knows it's not Claude's fault?
Well, I mean, who knows what Bergevin's going to try to do? I just cannot see that coaching staff is the problem. I mean, they've got a coach that's won a Stanley Cup reasonably recently, and you just take a look at the players and the player makeup and who they've got on that team, and it's not an NHL team. And there's certainly. They're made to do okay in the regular season. Can you imagine them in a playoff grind or in a playoff series? They'd be carting them off on stretchers, by and large.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no grit, no size, no nothing.
26 years, the Stanley Cup drought in Montreal. Doesn't sound to me like you think they're anywhere close to that ending.
No, I mean, I think it's still further downhill from here for the Montreal Canadiens. They're not going to make the playoffs. There's one good writer at the Montreal Gazette. His name is Brendan Kelly. He gets it. Read Brendan Kelly on the Montreal Gazette. The other guys should all retire.
Out of touch? They're out of touch?
They don't seem to be getting what's going on the ice at all, but Brendan Kelly does. So whether you like the Montreal Canadiens or dislike them, read Brendan Kelly, because if you dislike them, the Montreal Canadiens, you'll enjoy it anyway.
I love the comments that are coming in here with Don Hewitt in the bunker from Corey Shiplick. Mr. Hewitt, a great broadcaster.
Well, I got Corey fooled.
Somebody mentioned, and we're going to get around to the Riders here, Don's favorite team, the guys that wear the green hats. But somebody asked if you would accept Mike Babcock as the next head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. How would you feel about that?
Oh boy, I would lean to giving him more time to change, because I'm sure he will change, and would be a good coach in the NHL again. So I think Mike Babcock will be back in the National Hockey League, but I would give him just a little more time to absorb everything, realize how he has to change, and then go from there. So at some point I would, but of course, you know how it is in Montreal. Does Mike Babcock speak French? It's a big issue there, and they can't always hire the best coach because of it.
He's got the ties to McGill in the area, but that's a big question mark, is without speaking French and being bilingual, it's tough to be in that market. So
it is.
Yeah, that's interesting.
One more hockey note before we switch to the CFL. Our daily poll for Capital Auto Mall Universal Collision Center. Does hockey culture have a problem? Kind of lays into the Babcock thing, started this whole Me Too movement in hockey. On Twitter, 49% of respondents say no, hockey culture does not have a problem. It's a witch hunt. 34% say yes, it does, fix it. And 17% say they don't know. On Facebook, 45% of respondents say no, hockey does not have a culture problem. It's pretty much the same as Twitter respondents. And I'll go on board as saying, I don't believe hockey culture has a problem either. Are there some problem people in hockey that should be tuned in?
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I'll go along with that. But no, hockey does not. My God. A lot of us owe everything that we have to it.
It's an individual thing, as you said, totally. Yep.
Any other thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's good what has all happened here and what has all come out. It is a positive, and it needed to be done because of certain individuals that weren't behaving correctly and treating people with the respect that anybody would deserve. But I agree with what you said, Rod. I don't think it's a massive, wide problem in hockey culture, but some people had to understand that certain coaches can't coach anymore, and the ones that still are, if they're like that, they have to change.
Well, you often wonder, because you've heard these stories. I said it way back in the rollout. You've heard stories of these coaches that were physically beating players, in some cases emotionally abusing players, and you kind of wonder, why is their GM not doing anything? Why is the owner not doing anything? It was always another team.
Now, Ron Francis. I mean, that's an interesting story. He
Who's
said he
telling the
told
truth?
ownership, and ownership said he didn't tell ownership. Who's telling the truth there down in Carolina? Somebody's not.
Somebody's not.
Right.
And Francis is gone. Right? He's in Seattle now.
Right.
Sandra watching from Saskatoon today. She says, Lions press conference, Rick Campbell expected to be announced as head coach. We talked about that a little near the end of hour one, but it's now a good time to get into it. And before we do on Rick Campbell, the next coach of the Lions, Don, your blog has gone strangely silent.
Yes.
Because I read it. I'm a regular reader, the Don Hewitt blog at ctv.ca/Regina. I love it. What happened?
It is in hibernation until the first week of training camp.
Come on!
Yep.
It's a year-round league, didn't you know?
I have to spend more time watching the Canadians play hockey. No,
Fair enough.
It was an in-season thing for me, but I'll be back next season. But unless something huge happened, like Jeremy O'Day or Coach Craig, then. But really, it's an in-season blog. So I hope everybody comes back next May, middle of next May.
What's the synopsis of the year-end for Canada's team?
I think the synopsis for year-end is close but no cigar. They realize that they have to improve. I liked what they did today when they brought in, a new player personnel guy from Calgary who had been trained, Kyle Carson, I believe, who came in for Mike Davis. They obviously were happy, the Rough Riders, the job that Mike Davis did coaching the defensive line. They've now brought in Kyle Carson, who was trained by John Hufnagel, one of the best. And I think that's a great move for Jeremy O'Day. And, at the end of the day, I think they made some errors. They weren't fast enough in that Western final. Winnipeg could cover their receivers with man cover because, the receivers generally weren't fast enough other than Moore. I mean, you just watched the game last night in the NFL. Houston's got some speed guys at the receiver position, faster than the average NFL team. And Bill Belichick likes to man cover. He man covered, and they couldn't quite handle the speed of those Houston receivers, and that goes right back to Saskatchewan. Winnipeg were faster in the secondary than what Saskatchewan could handle with their receiving corps, so they have to make some improvements for sure, and I think they know it. But I think, as we've said before in the show, Rod, Jeremy O'Day, it's great to have him here as a general manager. It's great to have Coach Craig here as the head coach, and I think we're in good hands. And that was their first year, and now they know that there's some changes that they have to make to try to match what Winnipeg did. You can certainly say they were the second best team in the CFL. After losing a close Western final, then Winnipeg blowing out Hamilton, what's frustrating is they would have won the Grey Cup had they got there. But second is still second. It's not winning the Grey Cup. You still have to improve.
What does Ricky Bobby say?
If you ain't first, you're last.
Yeah.
Right? You have to win, and that's the end of story. You have to win.
With a couple minutes left here in this segment, actually, no, we'll break here, but I want to know, Don, you're a very visible guy. You're out there. I want to know what kinds of questions you're getting from the fans of the team. Think about that in the break,
okay,
and how you answer them. Dave Naylor from TSN coming up, the CFL on TSN Insider, and a whole lot more. Sports update on the other side. It's the Rod Pedersen Show, episode 127 on Facebook Live, and listen live at rodpedersen.com.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of the Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.